Recording in progress.
So we need to mute this stuff.
You guys can mute yours.
I am muted. You see them where?
Okay, now we should be good. All right, sorry, Hernan, go ahead.
All right, I think everybody's ready. We can call this meeting to order. Go. Because the first item in the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the March 1st meeting. Anybody has any objections, any changes? No. So I move to approve. I'll second the motion. So let's go ahead with the public presentation section.
I'm not seeing anyone here yet. Oh, there we go. These are all presenters. And it looks like we have no public participants.
Nice photo.
I can text them.
Oh, the environment's fixed.
Maybe they're planning on watching it later. I'll keep an eye on the participants, and if I notice people jump in, we have the option if you all would like to do public participation later. Okay.
All right, so let's move on to the next item, the discussions. I move to switch B and C. That's what we discussed, right? Like move C to B. Would that be before or after the member oath?
I think the intention is that the new member oaths would come first. We want to make sure that you're official board members before we move on to any of the discussion or decision items. And so I think the concept was to just flip flop those. Number one, I think the intention after talking to Hernan, I don't think that we're going to get high centered on the issue of selecting a board member to serve on the multi-board working group. But we also wanted to be respectful of the staff time and the staff who's here to present on the 6-day review issue. That way we could get them through, have your discussion and get on to them with that other board member.
Okay. So I guess let's start with the new members. All members that go back.
Should probably just vote on, you made the motion, sorry. Being the parliamentarian on the motion to switch those items, you should.
I guess should I make the motion before or after the take their oaths? You know, you're
Oh, well, good question. Yeah,
gonna.
probably after, yes.
Okay, so I guess let's start with the oaths.
Great. And I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm feeling a little disheveled with the issues, and we did not go over the meeting protocols, so we should do that. So my apologies, everybody. I promise I'm not usually this scatterbrained, but I also feel like I said that last meeting. So just wanted to take a moment to go over our meeting rules. Just bear with me 1 second. There it goes. All right. The city has engaged with community members to co-create a vision for productive, meaningful, and inclusive civic conversations. This vision supports physical and emotional safety for community members, staff, and board commission members, as well as democracy for people of all ages, identities, lived experiences, and political perspectives. For more information about this vision and the community engagement process, please visit that website. And the following are examples of rules of decorum found in the Boulder Revised Code and other guidelines that support this vision. These will be upheld during this meeting. All remarks and testimony shall be limited to matters related to city business. No participant shall make threats or use other forms of intimidation against any person. Obscenity, racial epithets, and other speech and behavior that disrupts or otherwise impedes the ability to conduct the meeting are prohibited. Participants are required to sign up to speak using the name they are commonly known by, and individuals must display their whole name before being allowed to speak online. Currently, only audio testimony is permitted online. Because we do not have registration for open and public comment tonight, you can indicate you would like to participate by using the raise hand function. The raise hand button is in the participant box, which can be found in the menu by hovering over the top or the bottom of your screen and then clicking on the participant icon. When the box opens, you will see the raise hand button at the bottom. By clicking the button, you can indicate you would like to participate in open or public comment. If you have joined us by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. All right, and since we had no one for public comment,
Should we circle back and see if there's anybody going?
I see no one still, so there we go. All right. Oaths of office. So you wanna? Let's take this one.
I think my one bread prepared of that, so I'll leave that to you guys. I remember stuff.
Sorry, my screen is stuck. There we go.
Remember, and
All right. There we go. So typically what we would do is just have you either read it aloud. Or we can read it for you and you can repeat it, whatever your preference is. But we'll start with, I believe Alex is first on the agenda.
I can just read it out loud.
You can read it
Yep,
out loud
on the
and then put pen to paper and that will be the process.
Yep.
So I, Alexander Bothwell, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Colorado and the charter and ordinances of the city of Boulder, and faithfully perform the duties of the office of a member of the Environmental Advisory Board, which I am about to.
Go ahead. All right, I'm Michael St. Clements, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and of the state of Colorado and the charter and ordinances of the city of Boulder, and faithfully perform the duties of the office of a member of the Environmental Advisory Board, which I am about to enter. What?
No, I just didn't know. Can you do a pen?
Oh, no, I got it. Thanks.
Yay.
Is that one?
We're the 12.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. Both are official voting board members. We appreciate your signatures. Congrats. We don't have balloons or anything to release, but.
We brought you pizza. All right, now that that's done, we can go back to your motion.
Okay, so I motion to move to switch items B and C, such that C goes first and C goes last. You have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we're good to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. So who's kicking this one off? Joanna, is this, we can get you up on the screen. I'm not sure if Joanna, you're taking the lead and kicking this off, Jamie, or otherwise, but I think we're ready to roll.
Fantastic.
Need somebody to give us.
Almost fantastic.
I think, is that audio okay?
Oh, yeah, it's great.
That's better.
Mhm.
Turn off your speakers. So we, just a logistical thing, I think in order to be able to present through Zoom, either Sandy Briggs or I needs to be made the co-host. Because screen sharing is disabled in the participant mode. But then as soon as we're able to present, Sandy Briggs and I will be talking through 6-day review and things.
I've changed you to co-host. Have you been able to do that
Awesome.
prompt yet?
That totally works. So thank you so much.
So you're.
Yeah, why don't I do that? And then Sandy, do you want to start us off? And I will, give me just 1 second and I will present.
You can tell when it comes up there, then, right? Yeah. Hopefully.
I'm gonna share my screen and then I'm gonna start from the beginning. Can you all see that okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
All right, can everybody hear me? Or do I need to unmute myself?
I wouldn't unmute yourself. I'll just move my computer closer. Or you can. Let's show that.
Well, then I don't have my notes. So. Thanks, everyone, for dealing with the logistics here. And yes, thanks for having us. My name is Sandy Briggs. I am a sustainability program manager in the Climate Initiatives Department on our circular economy team. And we're here today to share some information about a new collaboration between climate initiatives and public works utilities. Figure out how to do this. You're doing great.
I'm one,
Sandy, hold on one second. The audio is pretty bad. Hold on one,
Okay.
I'm wondering if there's a way that Sandy could come in and speak and someone could just like run the slides from over there or something.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Sandy?
I did, but I need to see my notes too, so.
Okay. We get kind of an echo through the wall and it's very difficult to hear. So I just want to make sure that.
How about you take and.
Yeah.
I've got a second computer in here too that you
Got
can
it.
pull up your slides from.
Okay. Okay, all right, I'm coming over.
All right.
And then we'll.
Sorry, y'all. I was,
Your
yeah.
original thought.
So sorry, you all.
I really apologize. I thought this would be an easy
Thanks, Sandy.
fix, given the situation.
Maybe easier to do in person anyway.
Here.
Just
sit here. That's totally fine.
Do you want to log in from this computer or you've got everything? you-
I think Joanna's gonna try to drive from the other room while I speak from this one.
That would be better.
Joanna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello?
Joanna, your screen is being shared still.
So we lost.
I can hear you, Sandy,
share.
just fine. But I think I need to share my screen, yeah? Or are you gonna show it in there?
You join the meeting.
I'm in the meeting.
You can't see whose computer are you
She
on?
was the one that, okay, so
I
I
got
did
you.
sharing ability, so
I don't see you on here at all, though.
Would it be easier to just have everyone come in and we could just have some seats back here and just do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
let's just crowd us all in. Hello.
Oh my gosh, I am.
You know, growing pains, we're trying to figure out how to do
Well,
this all.
It's like the story at the beginning of COVID, we went virtual and then like coming back, it's like happening.
It's figuring out how to be in person again.
You said I'm not even in the meeting?
It's not showing you on the meeting, but are you using someone else's computer?
No.
This is yours?
No, but I was plugged into I was plugged into the screen
So-
over there, and then I had to pull it out to come in here.
So join the Zoom meeting from that invite you received.
Who made the comment that we're flying through the agenda? Who was it?
We're doomed.
I have to say, I am so grateful that this is happening with this board because you guys are all so
It says I'm
relaxed.
I'm leaving one meeting to join another one now, apparently. I could,
Yeah, try that.
okay.
It's still not showing.
me to join and share? Is that what's happening?
Maybe
So-
it's connecting me, so, okay, so now I'm in a meeting. And
No, please, it's fine.
But your name's not on here. I'm gonna make everybody a co-host just so we can get. through.
that's just weird. I'm not showing up. You know why? Because I couldn't find the invitation and I used Joanna's.
There you go. Now you're in. So you can share your screen now.
Okay. Can I share the right screen is the next question.
All right.
All right, and can I, whoops, and then I want to go. Screen sharing, thank you, I know that, but can I do I don't ever do this, so I apologize.
It's a good day to learn. We're all
Just show me how to go into presentation mode from
Go to
here.
display settings.
At the very
Yeah,
top.
oh, gotcha. That's all I got.
That's weird.
This one?
That should be.
Oh, yeah, switch, yeah, when you put like that.
And I wonder, Sandy, at the risk of overcomplicating stuff, so keep going. I can always present and then you can have your notes there if you'd like to do that.
Yes. The answer to that would be yes.
Fantastic. Let me just, I'm gonna-
So sorry, you all.
Once you're connected, I'll put you back in as a co-host.
And
So
so,
I'm gonna mute myself. Wow, if I'm 2 inches this way.
right, so I'm not connected at all.
No.
Okay.
Makes it possible. Turn that off and then go and start from the beginning, fresh start. The only thing I don't know is.
There's two joints.
So grateful you two signed your oath.
So am I supposed to-
All this.
So am I supposed to unmute myself?
Yeah, there's no.
Okay, all right. All right, okay. So, well, now I hear myself through my own computer.
So if you turn yourself, you should be good.
Well, now the share is there and now my notes are gone, so let me go back to my.
So you don't need to share. I think this is me.
Yeah, so just go to your
But
note.
you and me are connected because I used your invitation, so every time you change, mine. changes. Oh, my God.
Oh, my goodness.
My goodness.
I'm so sorry, yeah. We'll get to it later. Oh, please.
You guys don't have anything else to do tonight, do you?
Because I remember.
Do you have your own invitation? Should we send you?
I did,
I can go into Zoom and resend it too. I need to, but.
I'm gonna.
Okay, so what do you need? Do you need the presentation now? So you just need to do this view to your notes, right?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, you can either do it from this view or the presentation.
this is fine. I mean, I might, okay. All right, I'm not gonna touch anything. I think we got it. Again, super sorry, y'all. And again, I'm Sandy. I work here in this building in the Climate Initiatives Department. And it's the fun fact, I used to be the EAB secretary way back when. Mike remembers me, from the days gone by, he's like the last remaining EAB member from that time. But as we've mentioned, we're gonna talk with you today a little about 6-day review and SAMPS, as a new collaboration between our department and Climate Initiatives and Public Works Utilities. So, okay, it's working. Thank you all. So we heard that y'all were interested in more information about 6-day review, which was really a timely request considering our newly recent collaboration between our departments. I also thought it would be super helpful for you all to understand a bit about the history of our work with the CU Environmental Center. So the City of Boulder and CU have long collaborated on waste diversion and sustainability programs. This all started as a kind of a simple handshake verbal agreement like many years ago. And then it was written into kind of a loose operating agreement in the mid-2010s. And then more recently solidified into an actual formal contractual relationship during the pandemic. And while this partnership has evolved in scope and name over the years, it's been green teams and it was the EcoBus and now it's the EcoVisit teams. The premise of the whole program has remained steady, and that is to educate incoming students each year about Boulder's and CU's shared sustainability cultures and goals, to utilize the tried and true peer-to-peer, face-to-face, community-based social marketing model to encourage behavior change and to provide tangible resources that will help remove some of the barriers that the students might have in being successful in sustainability programs. So the program continues to evolve even today. I can always talk with their manager up there about how we can fix it and make it better, and not fix it, but just how we can better collaborate to try to get behavior change to happen. It does continue to evolve, I said, but it does stay true to its cores of energy, waste, water, transportation, air quality, and climate justice education. Those are the things that we've always done together. So part of this history that I just shared was a regulation. A regulation came of this history. That really was aimed at preventing the excessive quantities of discarded materials from piling up in student inhabited neighborhoods during move-in and part of move-out periods in the spring. This became known as 6-day review, although it has much more complicated name in the official code. Code enforcement Jen Riley, code enforcement supervisor Jen Riley has probably some more information on that we can look for if we need it. Let's see. This one is not. Okay, so what is 6-day review? It is a regulation that requires rental property owners on the Hill and in the Doss Grove neighborhoods to subscribe to 6-day per week waste collection during the CU student move in and move out periods at their own expense. Haulers servicing these neighborhoods then are also required to provide this increased collection frequency. And typically they set the dates when the 6-day review occurs per the school schedules and historical collection data from when we've done it before. And during these review periods, the drivers will empty full trash containers daily, or if they're full on every day, but only if they're half full on a Saturday, on a day before a holiday, they'll empty them as well. And they also empty half full or more recycling containers at least twice weekly during the set period of time. The code reference was attached to your memo if you were excited to read the actual code language. So really, this code is pretty short and easy to understand. So it's one of my favorites. So as the circular economy, formerly zero waste team and the climate issues department, we've had really long-standing long-term goals for the move-in and move-out issues that we see twice a year. And those are to promote reuse by developing and implementing a system through which outgoing students can easily store, transport, share, donate furniture and other household goods with either local thrift stores or incoming students the next year, instead of sending all these materials to landfill. And there have been attempts in earlier years to incentivize the individual transportation of things from one place to a thrift store or to a donation zone through giving gift coupons to like local hill businesses. And also some partnerships with organizations like us, US Again, which are those, they put those boxes in, you know, in parking lots and on the streets. And there's only been really limited participation and success with either any of these attempts that have been made over the many years. And resourcing and logistical considerations and challenges have been really continual barriers over the years to developing this program. One of the biggest challenges, however, is also coordinating the many interested parties that would need to be involved in the development and implementation of such a program. This is just off the top of my head. I'm probably forgetting 1 or 2 or 10, but this is just the many parties that would be involved in tackling some sort of program. And the coordination with all these people gets really complicated. We did then hear from Public Works Utilities that there's kind of this overlap going on between our 6-day review and our challenges there and the safe and managed public spaces expansion, the SAMPS expansion. We identified this kind of overlap of our goals, and a cross-departmental working group was created between our departments. This year, we will test an expanded approach to preventing all these materials from entering the environment during move in and move out, and also serve as a place to start obtaining the information needed to envision a pilot program for an off-campus student circular sharing economy in the future. So now Joanna Bloom will tell you more about SAMPS and our combined efforts. And do I need to drive for you?
Thanks for going first. You did great.
Thanks.
So, hi, I'm Joanna Bloom. I'm a deputy director over in utilities, and I am involved in the Safe and Managed Spaces team. Utilities is a part of that citywide team, but it also does include other departments, Parks and Rec, Open Space, the police department, and several others. So it's more than utilities. Although, thanks, we're all trying to see.
What do we do today?
This is where Laurel excels. Thank you so much. Really cool. So utilities focus in this program really is on the management of public spaces, although for sure we try to take a compassionate approach as part of the larger homelessness strategy as well. So it's there's overlap, but our focus is really on managed public spaces. And so the program started in 2021. Oh, not quite yet. Sorry. No, that's okay. The program started in 2021 and we've been going for about 2 years. It's evolved over time. And at the end of last year, council did approve additional funds in the 2023 budget to expand the operations team that does a lot of the cleanups in conjunction with the police department. And they also had a line item in there to enhance our trash collection services. The idea being that, you know, there's these upstream sources of materials that make their way into drainage ways and encampments. And if we could stem the tide a little bit, that might help some of what's going on in public spaces. And so to get a better idea of SAM's overall, City Council is holding a 3-hour study session tomorrow on all things homelessness. So if you're interested in that topic, it's a great time to tune in. I know they're gonna talk about family homelessness, individual homelessness, and then there is a SAMHSA update as well, but we'll be there for the long haul tomorrow. Tonight is really to talk about this subset of this trash collection program. And really. Oh, I tried to forward it. Thank you so much. So we do notice this uptick in improperly discarded material in both May and August. I do think the table in your memo showed some of that increase of trash collection. We are assuming that some of it is coming from these student housing areas, but certainly not all of it is. But the focus is really to kind of enhance trash collection in those areas, to stop the flow down into drainage ways, not only to manage public spaces, but also it does increase our flood risk. If it clogs drainage ways or intakes or any other infrastructure, it really can increase the flood risk for everyone. So part of it is a safety goal as well. Thanks, Laurel. So, as Sandy mentioned, there is a nice overlap between these two programs, both the climate initiative stuff and then the money that we got for dumpsters for these, both the University Hill and the Gossgrove neighborhoods. And the intent is not for one to replace the other. They're coincident, and we'll see how they can complement each other, but they recognizing that they have slightly different approaches for our goals in the end. Next slide, please. So these are the proposed disposal locations. Western works with a lot of data, as Sandy mentioned, and so this was kind of a collaboration between utilities and Western to decide where we might get the best bang for our buck. These are subject to change. We're going to see what participation we get and we'll adapt. So this is very much a pilot program at this point where we're going in with an informed plan, but certainly we can adapt as we go. The one thing to note is that, as Sandy mentioned, the 6-day review is funded by rental property owners. So that enhanced trash collection as it is the rental property owners, but these dumpsters are all publicly funded through the general funds that council approved last year. Next. So as I mentioned, we're working through the implementation details. One real focus of this spring effort is to collect data on how much participation we're getting and really what types of materials we're getting. So we can focus enhanced reuse. And we know it's not ideal to just throw everything away, but that's where we are right now in our logistics planning. But the idea is to collect some data and see what we might be able to target effectively in the future for some type of reuse program. We haven't fully landed on a data collection method. I think the students have a lot going on in May. And so, we thought, oh, the Greek societies or whatever, but they're all doing finals and other things. And so we're looking for alternatives to student groups. We thought about doing crowdsourcing with the other folks that live on the Hill, some of the data and other volunteer opportunities, but we haven't totally nailed that down yet. So thoughts that you have about data collection are great, other than Sandy running around with her cell phone.
Which I will do. Jamie, did you hear that? I'm going to be out in the field for a while.
So that's where we are right now. So, and I think just in terms of next steps, next slide, please, Laurel. Really, again, for program implementation, trying to nail down the specifics. We will do an evaluation of the approach and just see how effective we're being. For example, on the SAMP side of things, people will dumpster dive. I know we experience that all down along the Pearl Street corridor, and so there's no guarantee that what gets put in the dumpsters is going to stay in there. So we're just going to kind of have to live our ways into it and see how it goes. Ideally, if it's effective and we get people using them, then we can enhance the program and incentivize reuse or kind of hit that next tier of improving the program. Right now, we're just laser focused on getting it off the ground. And just a reminder again, if you're interested in the broader, there is so much on this topic. So if you're interested in the broader thing, tomorrow night, tune in. And really, I guess, beyond what you all wanted to talk about, and if you have additional questions, we just wanted to see what suggestions you might have, recognizing that we're really in the bare bones, developmental stages right now, but any thoughts you might have if this continues in the future, what thoughts you all have?
Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, do it. And I'm gonna, just so I'm not like in your personal bubble, I'm gonna zoom back there.
So it sounds like the dumpster or drop points from Sam's perspective are there year round. As opposed to the ones associated with move in, move out would be there May and August, is that correct?
So, slightly modified. So the council budget line item did approve funding for 3 dumpsters downtown. As the program evolves, we're still trying to develop specific locations to see where it would be most helpful. Those would be bear approved to keep the dumpster diving and the wildlife safe. Those would be year round, these 3. The ones on the hill will only be there during move in, move out. So Western will bring them in for about a 3-week period in May. They'll take them away and then they'll come back again in the fall for, I think it's a 2-week period then. We originally were gonna go with a larger number of dumpsters, but there's so much going on with the student population during the same time frame that they're actually limited on number of dumpsters that they can lease us. And so, you know, we're open to looking at other ideas where public services is also party to this 6-day review policy, but so far it's just, we've just done question. But so that's the long answer. It's really just during these move in, move out periods for this, the map that you saw.
Okay, so I'm wondering, and this isn't really a suggestion, but something that I noticed, it was more, when I lived in like CU graduate student housing, there was almost a culture of reuse, that there was a kind of collective area where people would drop things, other people would grab it, and it was, you know, that was just there year round. Is there a way kind of establish that culture of reuse? I don't know, maybe surrounding the year-long and accessible dumpsters. Is that, you know, and I know that's kind of hard when you take it to a city scale.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the creek corridor itself, and because of the flood concern and whatever, we try not to encourage more stuff coming into that corridor. So I think that's why we're trying to focus on these neighborhood areas. I absolutely think that's on the table in terms of enhancements down the road of establishing that culture. We'd have to work through all the details. I know right now, there are kind of informal dump areas and I wouldn't want to exacerbate those issues. And so we really need to vet the idea, but for sure, I think stuff like that is on the table. We might improve.
It's part of the long-term plan, the dream that we've always had to try to, you know, create these sorts of sharing, you know, economies. And it is, I'm a little bit familiar with the program you mentioned, graduate family housing, because I've talked to our contacts there about, or not there, but at the East Center about the grab and go programs that they have within the dorm, in the residence halls and such too. They do a similar thing where people can leave stuff and give them take stuff. And I actually asked her if there was a way she thought we could collaborate in bringing that outside the realm of campus. And it just brings in a whole another set of logistical problems and space problems and all of that. So it's just one of our challenges, but it's definitely part of our long-term vision and our dream to try to create that sort of sharing society. So
I think one of the ideas, and this is probably way far down the road, but we talked about this, is that, you know, even having some type of, it's not exactly what you were talking about, but having some type of short-term storage facility, if we could secure that, where students are leaving for the summer, but want to come back in the fall and get stuff, and, you know, it's like, buy nothing, you know, downtown Boulder or whatever it is, we could potentially look at that. I think there's a lot of question marks about continued funding or whatever, but if it goes well, I think those are, you know, we could go.
if we can figure out a way for students to be able to transport and bring their things to a central location, like a pop-up Halloween store, that an empty warehouse or whatever, for the 3 or 4 months over the summer, and they can just drop off their stuff and they either come back and get it, or other students can come back in the fall and just basically go shopping for everything that they might need there. I mean, that's really what we envision. But again, logistics and space and funding are all really tricky when it comes to that. And just trying to figure out how to transport things, you know, how to incentivize people to transport their own things.
And to make it convenient enough to build it.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
All about convenience.
It is.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier that one of the bigger issues was students were just not participating.
Mhm.
And so I never lived on campus myself, but what my roommates did, and having met college students, specifically undergrads at CU, they tend to be pretty disinclined from the sort of environmental direction that the city of Boulder is going. The CU undergraduate program is a very different culture from the surrounding area of Boulder and from the graduate programs at CU. What kind of like potential outreaches is like on the table? What are you looking into? Because that's gonna be a hard group to make the pitch to.
There is the OCNAR office, right? The Off-Campus Neighborhood Relations Office through CU that we also partner with. I think Laurel's more familiar with them than I am, but don't mean to throw you in the mix, Laurel, but but yes, they do a lot of outreach, and at move in and move out times, they do door hanging, and they walk around the neighborhood to try to provide, as much information as they possibly can on a door hanger that says, take your building materials to Resource and take your, electronics to Charm and do this and this and this. And they list out all the, a myriad of options in Boulder, what to do with stuff. It's just making it easy and convenient. That is always the hard part.
Yeah, so this year's door hanger will have a QR code that takes them to the project page that will have the map that shows them where their nearest dumpster is to their location.
And Laurel is utilities.
Yeah.
She does all things outreach for utilities.
Between that and then working with our communications team to try to figure out, as Joanna had alluded to, particularly the data collection piece.
Right.
Is if we can create a hashtag that gets the permanent neighbors in those neighborhoods to help us when they see a full dumpster, snap a picture. Just to onto a hashtag so that for when we can't get Sandy out or one of our volunteers out, to really just take a look and see what materials are in the dumpsters.
Right.
So that's one avenue that I'm pursuing right now.
So this is a bit of a sidestep, if that's okay. You were kind of wondering about how to collect data, or I guess we're talking about just how to get the word out. Is it possible, I know this is kind of last minute, but to capitalize on Earth Day and people's general awareness, at least on that specific day, to try to get information out? Obviously, it doesn't coincide with May move out dates, but I think that's a day when people are a little bit more receptive to engaging in this sort of thing. So that could be a day to try to.
I see that we could definitely push out some information. We have a really great communications people and channels. We struggle with getting that information into the right eyes and ears though. So that's where we struggle a little bit too, where I struggle at least. So we can make the best pieces, but if people aren't reading them or hearing them, how do we get them to the student population is the hard part. If they're not listening or not tuned into like city newsletters or city news channel. Yeah, right, exactly. So, and I don't know what's the best social media for undergrads these days?
TikTok.
Snapchat.
Yes.
Instagram it's really falling out of fashion.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think that, I don't think the city has a TikTok channel. So, yeah, so.
Do student groups on campus?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but they probably do.
We do, that would be a good thing for me to discuss with the eco visits teams, because they are the student peer-to-peer teams that go out and do that. And have TikTok. I don't know if they have like TikTok, I don't know how TikTok works well, I'm old. So how it works well enough, how it could go get out to the whole student population or through CU, through environmental center newsletters. I don't know if everybody gets those either, or sorry, do you need to? Yeah. Oh, no, I'm so sorry.
Thanks. That's my, can you just stick that on my desk and then that's my charger too?
Okay. So yes, getting the word out, I think we could do something around Earth Day. Just what channels to get it through on is the trickier part, so. Yeah.
the only consistent way to get to senior students, there are email blasts that all of the undergrads receive. It just goes out to all new emails, but most people just delete those and don't even read them. I did that, and I'm, one of the more active engaged students.
Right.
There.
That's the case, we're in trouble.
Right. So going through any of those sort of email blasts is, I think, gonna be a hard way to reach people. I think if there's a way to use social media or find which environmental groups in CU use social media and get them to put the word out, that's probably gonna be the most consistent way that I can think of. But even that is gonna be hit or miss. Students are a remarkably unengaged group. And that's not an easily fixable problem.
I do know for a previous outreach that we've done surrounding 6-day review unrelated to this. I know that our police comms person does coordinate with the off-campus housing group, and they work on messaging, so it's definitely something we can ask them about targeting a certain date. Just kind of enhance things going forward, and maybe they have some ideas, because I know they wrestle with communicating in different levels so much.
Yeah, and those door hangers that the labor relations distributes, they usually go out about 3 weeks before actual end of classes, which actually puts us like what, next week. So yeah. So the kind of time we need, philosophy of it, they're getting them on their doors around Earth Day. Yeah, it's definitely a challenge.
Mike, Amanda, do you have any questions, comments?
I think, yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, you can't send me back here. If I can offer a couple of comments, for the record, Jonathan Cohen, Director of Climate Initiatives. I hope the board can see a little bit of the duality of the conversation. There's kind of this acute issue that flares up on a regular basis, and we're really putting together some tactics to kind of address those public health and safety issues that occur. And I think what would be really interesting is to come back and have a conversation with the board about how do we change that culture? Because I will say, and I think you all can probably surmise this is not a unique situation to Boulder or to this university. This happens at every campus. And so I really appreciate these comments around what are the tactics to try to push information out. But I think to the comments about even if that information is present, is it going to result in a change in behavior? I don't necessarily believe it will, but I am open to be proven wrong. Let me just put it that way. So I think it'd be great to have a conversation with the board about how do we start to continue to shift towards a reuse mentality. This is front and center in a lot of the work that Sandy's been leading and our circular economy team to say, what's the infrastructure we need to make this type of reuse culture the easiest and only option. And right now, the default is to go with the easy option, right? It's to just lump stuff out on the curb, or it just goes wherever it goes. So that's some work that we have to do as a department, as a city, as a partnership with the university, with the housing entities and all of our partners that we need to be thinking about to really shift that mentality and change that culture. And love to engage with the board in what is that long-term trajectory? How do we want to think about that? What are some strategies to start changing that narrative? So I just wanted to bring up kind of this, here is like this acute issue that happens during these months. But those tactics are going to be a little bit different to this long-term strategy. Thanks for allowing me there.
I think I have some comment on that. I mean, like we were saying earlier, it's all about convenience. I will say you should contact through hospice thrift stores because they have a sweet operation with getting, like they have the best furniture of all the thrift stores in Boulder.
I've witnessed that personally too, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 50% off things, great. But I think the reason they have the best furniture is because, I don't know if they do this anymore, they did this for sure pre-COVID, but you could call them and they will come to your house and pick up your furniture for you. So like if you were an old lady that has this, beautiful antique, and you want to get rid of it, you could call them, they will come, if it's good, they will take it from your hands. That they had a van, put it there, take it to the thrift store, all free. And then, if they're gonna sell it or whatever, then they handle the disposal. So I think, since this is mostly students, then, maybe the CU Boulder should have a more active role in providing some sort of like van that only works in, what is it, May and August. And like you said, some sort of warehouse where things can go, and then if they cannot recycle them, then Western Disposal Republic, what was the new Republic?
Public services.
There's, I think it's our. They come and, take the furniture away. So I think that would be my 2 cents, just because I've seen it work. I think, the business model they have, the thrift store is great. And, nice you just go and shop and, get some really good bargains. What I will say is, I don't know about the state of furniture of students.
Yeah. That's another consideration.
So like that will make it more complicated,
Yeah.
like questionable stains.
Aren't all stains questionable?
Especially.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really has some complexity, to the issue.
Well, but if it's students, buying and selling, or
Maybe
buying and
that's-
donating, and so I think that might even
Yeah.
out.
And it's sweet too, because the thrift store actually, every now and then they post stuff they have. On social media or in the marketplace, so they have like a multi-channel thing where it's like you can go and buy in person, or you can also buy through marketplace or something even eBay and stuff from that particular thrift store. They do really have a nice operation going in there.
They do, as do some of the others as well that we've researched before, and it's a question of scale. That's great if you have 1 or 2, maybe 5 pieces of furniture, but when you have 500, then you really need to scale up somehow and get all of the store involved and get a truck, a box truck at least, and so that's, again, just logistical challenges, but you're right about the true hospice. I really appreciate them. So.
I have a few more questions if
Or along that topic, if that's okay, what are the chances that if this were to be organized, they come into the house or apartment and pick it up, as opposed to, right, because we're overcoming the convenience issue, and so the student they just have to put it on the curb. But if you say, if we can make it even easier, we come in, you don't even have to move it out of the living room.
Text you and you come get with what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility?
If we have funding to pay them to do that, I don't think they would do that. 500, or I'm just guessing, I don't know how many numbers are, but I think it's something we can ask to work to set up an agreement to do that, but I think it's gonna need funding.
Would there be a way to sort of set up work with the CU administration to set up a CU thrift store, right? That functions on a sort of similar premise to what you were trying, but however it would work best, but to there, rather than trying to outsource it to a separate thrift store or an outside company, but to have, because CU has I know they have some amount of retail store for books and all those things. Is that a feasible conversation to have?
I think it's totally feasible to have, and I've had it a little bit before, and we always get the same answers that they don't have the space on campus to do that, so.
Okay.
No, we're not going there.
I really like that idea though, because it'd be great if you're
Yeah.
looking in and you could just go to some exchange on campus and everyone was aware of it and
Yeah.
throw it by word of mouth and it just became a place where things
Yeah.
went and we're
Like-
thinking that.
Well, and as I mentioned before, they do have something established like that for the residence halls already, for the incoming, the outgoing freshmen and the incoming freshmen, but, or anybody that really wants to do it.
I mean,
So,
I was just gonna say, that can almost be a university function and
yeah.
function a little bit outside of markets and needing to make money and pick people, it could be work study, like you said, and function on a whole different sort of level and be really convenient.
And I feel like there's still a place for our eco visits teams and all of this as
Yeah.
well, for sure, because that's what they do. I mean, they go talk to their fellow students about these things, so.
And I think if you incorporate work study that takes care of at least an element of the communication issue we were having before, where people know that they have friends that work there, or you heard someone's picking up a shift there, just at least has one pathway to communication.
Yeah, all really great ideas.
A couple of comments / questions. I guess I'm a little curious if there's any avenues to shift where the 6-day review funding is coming from. I'm a little concerned because you said it was being funded by rental property owners and they usually pass costs on to their renters and students usually don't have too much money. I know there are some students at CU that have a little bit more legacy wealth, but in general, across the US, students don't have too much money. And so I'm wondering, yeah, I guess if there are any other avenues we could look towards for that, because Runts and Boulder are huge right now.
Right. That's a good question. I'm not sure I know how to answer that. I think there's definitely avenues that can be looked at. I'm not sure what those are right now. But you can look into it.
Currently, it's in the code, so it would
Yeah.
require a code change
Yeah.
to not have it be that way, and I'm not certain about the history of how the code got established. But it's been around for at least 20 years, so,
Yeah,
so this is not a new arrangement, but certainly we could find more about the history.
Yeah. I guess also how much are, like, for one rental property owner, how much of an increase would it be?
Do you know the specifics? I know it's like.
But I'm trying to figure out how much of an increase in rent it would necessitate, or, well.
the haulers all have,
Yeah.
the haulers all have their own business plans and rates, and I'm not sure what they charge necessarily for that.
Yeah.
It's a piece of information that they don't often share easily with us either. They probably would. I have some
Yeah.
people I get asked, but
I do think our maintenance manager has information related to it. I know they'll only empty the trash can if it's 3/4 full or more, and then you get charged for that empty. And then if you leave a large item, it's like, a microwave, it's like $25 or whatever. So I would estimate it's in the hundreds, not thousands, that would be passed on to students for that time frame.
Yeah.
But again, we can follow up.
yeah, they charge per haul. So
Yeah.
rather than picking up the trash once or twice a week, now they're doing it 6 days a week
Right.
for a 3-week period. So it's just an extra pickup, basically.
Yeah.
And for extra items if there are.
Yeah, and I would also say, I guess. Are there large pickup zones on campus during those times for like hard to recycle items? Because I know we were having a discussion earlier about the QR code, and I think that's a great idea, but even like me, who's super like into environmental issues, I have a hard time like making myself go to Charm. I'll go to Charm like once every 6 months, and I'll have things piling up, and then it'll be like a pile in my apartment because I don't want to go to Charm yet.
Right.
But I'm wondering if maybe we have something specifically for students, that's like all of the different, like e-waste and batteries and light bulbs and computers, like all in one area during those times on campus. That might be a lot easier.
Yeah, agreed. That's a funding issue then too, but yes, I mean, I know we do it for other sectors of the community, so I don't know. I don't know why we couldn't extend that to a student sector as well, other than, locating the funding for it, so. And I'm not positive what they do specifically on campus about that. So we'd have to talk with them because of the, I guess, the jurisdictional boundaries that brings up as well, but yeah.
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 I'm also wondering, you were looking for data collection volunteers, or do you have any funding source for data collection?
We do not at this time,
Okay.
no, so,
Okay.
yeah.
I was also wondering if we could talk about why you guys are collecting the data, so I guess you might have more of a sense of why this is, but you said that because of students, there's more trash pickups in May and August because those are move out times or move in times. I'm wondering what you think of it being also the case during or around encampments.
I was wondering that earlier too, if it's the trickling down or if it's just coincides with the beginning and end of summer in encampment.
Or I was also wondering if this ties into student homelessness. Which is, could be a huge issue.
So I mean. I don't know that there's a direct cause and effect relationship we can draw, but I can speak broadly to what we see about the different populations. Along the creek, I do think that the area that we're primarily focused on with the SANS team right now is either the Boulder Creek corridor or over in Goose Creek. There's a couple of other areas that we get to, but it's really those two areas that are the hotspots, and our resources kind of limit us to those two areas. There is a really high prevalence of drug addiction in those populations as well. There's for certain that it's not the only homelessness issue that Boulder faces, and it's much larger than that. But in these two specific areas, I can say that that's largely the population. And there's a lot of comorbid things that happen with drug addiction for mental health reasons and things, and hoarding behaviors is one of them. And so I do think what we see is that there's either dumpster diving along Pearl Street or whatever, just whatever is close by, that people will accumulate things. So when we talk about trash that we collect for in the SAMPS program, it's, obviously it's food wrappers and things like that, or things that have been contaminated either by human waste or other things. But there's also a lot of furniture, there's mannequins, there's heavy bags. There's just a lot of stuff that gets accumulated as well. And I think it is because there really is a whole society that's kind of involved in it. So I would say my anecdotal experience in managing this team is that we don't really see a high prevalence of student homelessness happening. It's more folks that are really in this category of kind of persistent and sustained homelessness associated with addiction as well.
Okay, so are you saying that maybe it's higher in May and August for the homeless population because there's an increase in student trash?
I think so. I think it's just more readily available. In those areas. It's out there, you grab it, and if it's out on the side of the street, you grab it and it's yours now, and it's great, right? So there's a lot of that. And it is somewhat of a revolving door where we pick it up and we throw it away, and then there's more the next week, but I just think there's more available during those times. That's the hypothesis. We'll let you know.
Yeah,
we'll let you know after our data collection if we get closer to proving.
As a follow-up to that, is there a reason that the needle numbers would be significantly higher?
That is really interesting.
Because if
I don't know.
the drug addiction is mostly in the homeless population, then there's no reason for entry and exit of students to cause an increase.
We don't know. So interestingly, again, this is all anecdotal, and I don't know that I have any hard data, although I can ask Housing and Human Services regulates the kind of needle collection station, so I can ask them. But they were saying, for sure, we do individual needle sharps container hands out as part of our wellness checks and things like that as we're going on notifying folks to move. But we also have these larger containers. They do get used for certain in conjunction with drug addiction, but it's also, I know we've heard that, there's people that, there's an acupuncturist that uses this spot as their disposal site, and that's just what they do. And so it might be that there's other just random things like diabetic needles and things like that. I don't know what we're seeing, and I noticed that too. So TBD, but it is an interesting little data point.
So also some questions. So the six-day review just says that the landlord has to pay extra during 6 days at moving and move out times. So the way that works is Western Disposal will come to the house and check the trash bin, or if it's out,
That's right.
they will pick it up
Yes.
and then take it, right? Yeah.
They will if it's more than my understanding is if it's more than 3/4 of the way full, they will empty it and then charge for that empty.
And it is just a regular 96-gallon.
Yeah,
trash
it's
bin.
just, whatever you're rolling up, there's no trash.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then they will bill the landlord.
and then they bill the landlord for that, or they bill whoever's on the trash account.
Okay, which is you should tell the students. So it makes sense that the student want to use it because then you have to pay money. Right?
Yes, and it's very individualized, whether it goes to the student or the landlord, that's really up to them how they structure that, but yes, whoever's on the account gets it, and yes, you would pay more if you put your couch or whatever, they will charge for that pickup, and they'll charge for the bin empty as well, and it is an increase to them.
So I guess I see two things with that is like, one would be at the cost because if I was a student. Yeah, I wouldn't call them to pick it up, because I would be like.
Well, the 6 day happens automatically. They drive by 6 days a week during that period. That's why it's called 6 day review, because they go through and they check the can. So you don't have to call, they just come. They're just there.
But you can't want to be on the street, it will be like in your.
And a lot of times they're out in alleys already. And so I think primarily in these neighborhoods, the trash cans are located outside.
Okay, then another option, okay.
Yeah.
Then I guess those bins can already accommodate furniture.
That's right. So they would be next to the can, and that would be an additional tag. They call it a large item tag charge.
So they do take them though.
They do. Mhm. If you put it in the alley, which they don't all end up in the alley, they end up in front yard and things like that too, but those don't get picked up. It's only if it's next to.
And you said you're in the data collection phase right now?
We're trying to figure out, so with the dumpsters that utilities is providing out, we're not providing them, Western is providing them, but that with these general fund monies. Yes, we are trying to figure out how to collect data primarily to inform, is there a reuse opportunity? I mean, and that's just an add-on. Really, the request from council was do something about stopping the flow of trash that we see in May and August from these areas to encampments. So data collection is, we're trying to figure out, well, while we have the opportunity, let's see, A, if people are using it, and then B, what they're using it for. So yes, we're
Like luggage tagging, the cheapest ones you can find, like some items that are pretty nice, and then like seriously.
Yeah.
I'm following.
yeah, I mean, I don't think as a public employee, we can do that.
Okay, so the goal of this pilot is to stop the flow
Yes.
from student neighborhoods to encampment. That's
Yes.
the main goal.
That's really
Okay.
for our lens, for sure.
And what's it gonna trash that ends up, I mean, I guess furniture is too heavy to carry, so what are we looking at that ends up in encampments, like
It's-
coats or like,
Furniture is totally not too heavy to carry.
really?
Everything makes it. Sofa, I mean, you would be amazed. So everything that is dumped out will make it into an encampment.
Okay, so how does that work? Like the kids drop it like by the creek, like where do they put it?
They put it in the front yard or in the alley.
And then you're on that and you got nothing to do for 36 hours, you are really industrious about collecting whatever it is that you can find and you bring it to your encampment.
So even though Western Disposal will come every single day, they will come at night and just take the furniture.
Well,
Okay.
again, the furniture is usually located in places not next to the bins. And Western will only pick up the large
But like
items.
front, like you said,
that are
yeah,
next to the bins.
Front yard
But
example. So part of the reason why I knew about 6 day review is totally unrelated to encampments. Working in utilities, we also work a lot with irrigation ditches and the Anderson ditch runs through the hill. And I would get calls from residents all the time where it's like, hey, I got this ditch running through my yard. And students come and they throw all their couches in it. And this one poor guy who lives on the corner ends up with like 6 to 10 couches, like every. And I don't know why the ditch is such a magnet, but it is, but the students will throw it in there, so they don't have to pay for the disposal. Or for whatever reason. So you're right, if it's next to the bins, it's kind of managed, but it's all the other areas where it just gets dumped essentially, and it's in the front yard or your neighbor's front yard, so you don't have to deal with it.
Okay, so it's. Okay, that's a slightly different problem, I guess. That I was thinking.
Would there be a way to get Western to not charge for 6 day review? Because students aren't going to throw away their furniture if they're gonna be billed $50 to throw away their couch. They're just not gonna throw it away in a place that is designed to be thrown away. Is there a way to either, ask Western Disposal to get them to not charge for those days, or have a reimbursement from the city so that the payment onus is not on the students? Is that a feasible plan? Because I think as long as students are still being charged for it, we're just going to continue to see a lack of throwing things away in the proper spaces.
So, I mean, this is gets out of my territory, but I would say funding of this could look a lot of different ways, but the money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
So I can't speak for Western, and I don't know what council would approve or not approve, but free trash service, I don't think is a model. But where the money comes from, I think is more to this long-term strategic discussion about like, how do we create a culture of reuse, or where could the funding come from that that is sustainable. I think that's really the crux of why these are hard to launch, is because there's really no sustainable source of funding to manage this issue.
And just to clarify, in case anybody doesn't understand it, it's a free market of haulers in Boulder, and Western is not the city hauler, or contracted hauler. So we don't really have any control over their business models or what they charge. I mean, we can suggest and ask things, but it's up to them what they're gonna charge.
Oh, maybe another way to frame that conversation question. And this is maybe in the realm of data collection, have we talked to some of these different residents, some who have been not successful, where we see couches on lawns, Western Staples not picking up all these furniture, versus those who seemingly are successful, and trying to pinpoint why is this successful versus why is this one not? Is it just more active or responsible tenants live there, or are the landlords actively engaging with their tenants and saying, we won't charge you that, or hey, this is the policy, whereas these people just don't know? Is there a way to?
Gonna say, I think from my conversations with the off-campus housing needs. I think it's more the latter. You have responsible landlords that understand what the city's policy is. They understand what we're trying to achieve. One of the challenges that I guess the education piece and the outreach piece is that off-campus housing actually told me that they have students that come in every year that say their landlord opted out of 6-day review. And the thing is you can't opt out of it. That's not.
That's like opting out of the speed limit.
It's not officially permitted, and so that's another challenge that I'm trying to work with. The folks issues. How to educate and inform the property owners of their responsibility as well.
Do those owners get fined or at risk of losing their rental license?
Oh, I wish the Jim was here.
I know, right?
Interesting. I don't know about that. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, I do know the model that we have now is that if you're a rental landlord and somebody, 5 doors down or whatever, dumps a couch on your yard, you, as where the place where the couch ends up gets a ticket, you get a citation, and then you are charged for hauling it off. So whoever does the dumping, unless you can catch them in the act or whatever else, kind of walks away. It's an additional, it's a code violation to get dumped on. So it's not a very fair system.
So considering these couch in my front yard.
Yeah.
They're in trouble.
You're-
They're in trouble.
Yeah, you're gonna take it. You call and you say, somebody dumped a couch in my front yard. They say,
That's all I
great,
would
here's
say,
the
no
ticket,
illegal
please get that all the way.
Yeah.
You're in a right of way violation, yeah.
Monitor this.
So it's not a perfect system for sure.
So you guys come here today to just inform us of this, or to like get some feedback, or like some, like, are you gonna be proposing solutions to council like that? The ultimate goal at this point, or after data collection?
Yeah, so really we came at the request of the board to inform mostly. For sure, the conversation has informed what I hope. I mean, so even though our task at hand right now is to kind of stem the flow of trash, if it goes well, there's no reason why we couldn't encourage reuse and then enhance it, right? That I think would be great, and all the ideas we'll discuss tonight, I think we could take back, and I'm sure the conversation is broader than us. But we are not at a point yet where reuse can be our focus. Right now, we just have to make sure we can get the program off the ground, and it's really only funded for 1 year right now. So if it goes well and we get the dumpsters get used, then it has a better chance of being consistently funded, and then maybe we can talk about some of these other programs. So we're not quite there yet, but definitely it's worth planning for the long haul in case it's successful.
How big are the dumpsters? Like, are we looking like half model size or what?
Are they regular or?
No, they're.
We'll roll off.
Not that big, giant.
Is
Or
that-
decent size.
Mhm.
Same footprint, but not as tall as like the 40-yard dumpsters, and you can't really push anything up over the top. 20 yards, you can get stuff in them.
Yeah, and plus we're constrained by like physical location too. So we're having spaces that would be taken up to be able to.
Oh, they're taking up parking spaces for us on my property,
Mhm.
like all year round, I think.
Sorry.
I guess what I'd like to suggest is maybe as in the future revise the code. And try to get funding through the rental license fee or something for, supporting, if it's successful, supporting this program. I've also tried to phrase it in a way that landlords kind of, just made a way with say like, no. Some sort of like, but do you say, Jonathan, they don't get fined at all, or if they violate the 6-day review, or did they get it wrong?
No, it doesn't mean that the code doesn't provide for a fine option. It's just in terms of code enforcement's ability to actually track that down. And the fact is, and I just want to stress this point, that this program has been around for quite a while. I think it's trying to set for 20 years. And so one of the things I want to come back to you, because I know you want to finish your comment or your question. But one of the things that I heard from the board, and I think this is a really important thing for us to take back, is having a better understanding of how that cost is actually passed along to customers. Because quite frankly, the way these bills usually go, it's like socialized across the entire year, right? So sometimes it's just kind of built into the cost versus what I think maybe some of you heard is during those weeks, a landlord gives a bill to a student that says, $100 because your can went out, and that would be problematic. So understanding what is the typical way that the haulers apply those fines? How do the landlords pass those costs on? And then I think that we can have a conversation about, does it make sense to try to incentivize some of those costs? Should other taxpayers foot the bill for that? Is there another way to think about covering those costs? And that I think can come in with this like, well, is there an incentive for reuse? So is there a way to get landlords to be partners to say, hey, guess what? You don't get these costs if you work with us to try to find ways to minimize that waste during those times of year. So that's one of the things that I definitely heard for sure. And then we can take a look at the code and talk about and think about what does it actually say? What modifications would be beneficial? And maybe those are some things we want to come back to talk to the board about in the future.
What will be the timeline for this, for the study, for all these discussions? Do you think?
Well, I know you all are looking at the spring and fall. The funding was for this calendar year. And I think some of the data collection is to start to understand what actually is being collected, where is it going? That can help us make informed decisions about any revisions to not only a longer sustained program, but also any maybe regulatory changes. So my guess is perhaps I'm making this up, so correct me. After move in, so maybe late fall, latter part of this year, that please tell me if I'm getting this wrong, that there might be some data to share to come back and say, here's what we've learned. And that I think would be at a time to say, what do we want to do for 2024? Do we look at some additional funding? Did we learn what we needed to learn? Do we need an additional year? And that I think would be a great time to come back and really get support.
Okay, yeah, sounds good to me.
Agreed.
Yeah. Like waiting for the same guy, like.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued by this idea of some landlords that are doing it right, and some tenants that want to do it right and using those as kind of the seed to grow in those neighborhoods and to incentivize more of that kind of behavior. So,
Just a quick comment, I think, one of the things I used when I was in college, which is not too long ago, but I guess fortunately or unfortunately, you can say that Facebook's no longer used by college students, but in my college, we had buy sell trade group, which was used like all throughout the year for anything, basically like a barter system. And if we could do that with TikTok, I think it would it could actually work with TikTok too. You could just film what you're selling or trading. And take it down whenever you've traded it. We could suggest that to some of the green groups at CU to start up just doing it on their own.
Yeah, Sarah Dawn Haynes, who I work with up at the
Yeah.
Youth Center, she wants to start something like that at Graduate Family Housing.
Yeah.
She's been talking about that for a little, I forget what the platform was, it was something different, that was new to me, but,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, it's a killer idea, I think it's the way to go.
Yeah, and then I would also say, I feel like we're talking about really complex solutions to a problem that is caused by other things, mainly that a lot of students live off campus and that there's a large homelessness population in Boulder. And I think if we kind of shift the focus to talking about how can we create more student housing on campus and how can we build more housing. But I honestly think that that's the core issue. And so if we want to actually tackle this problem, those are the core issues we need to be talking about, is how do we build more affordable housing, like real affordable housing, lower rents, so that so that students live more on campus with potentially CU South. I think those are honestly the core issues here. Instead of just worrying about how students are kind of all over the city and dumping things, and then they all end up in a homelessness population that's growing. So.
Bigger questions for sure.
Yeah.
Just have one last quick
There's
thought.
not a critique of anyone, I'm just saying.
When you said the barter cell comment, it made me wonder if this needle number has to do with actually all that, those resources filtering into that population, which somehow get transferred to money or barter or so on for more drugs that time of year. And that's what actually causes it to pick up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, frightening.
Definitely ask Housing and Human Services, they may have insight into that.
I don't remember which Nordic country it was, but I think one of the Nordic countries had like set up actual like places where you can go where trained doctors can give you injections and there's no kind of policing around illegal drug use, so that you significantly takes down the stigma and reduce diseases caused by reducing needles. And that would also decrease the amount of needles that are thrown away, which I honestly don't think is the huge problem there. But if we're talking about trash specifically, and if that's our only lens of looking at this, it would also help the trash.
But for now, the scope, funding, timeline of this project is set in stone, right? It's constrained to what you presented, like these answers. Put these answers where they are, measure if it improves.
Right.
Come back later in the year and have a new discussion.
Yes.
So everything we told you right now.
You will not have, I can't see you said right now. It's really helpful for us to
Just
think
a
about
quick
it for long term, exactly,
Yeah.
so yes, but no, it's not like in 2 months you'll see it.
Given that point, it seems like one of the actionable things we can do tonight is figure out how to get the best data that we can.
It would be great if you had a good idea.
Yeah.
About it.
The only thing that I heard was that Sandy might be running around with.
Yeah. Which is probably not gonna happen, but I will, I mean, if I need to do some spot checking, we need to see what's.
Yeah,
in
what do you
there.
anticipate?
The only other thing that we always will get is just tonnage. So Western will weigh usually their rocks to us and tell us how much weight of stone.
Yeah.
That's one of the challenges that we want. We've been talking about ideas for months, really, trying to figure out.
And then
how we-
compare it to these numbers late next year to see if the trash in campus in that, that might be it.
That's the
That's the
idea.
idea.
There's a lot of variables, so.
Yeah.
we'll do it for seconds, but that's the idea.
Does Western Exposure give you total tonnage for the 3-week period or day to day?
Yes,
Per container,
Mhm.
yes,
so at least you will know which ones are.
yes,
used the
we
most.
will be able to
Yeah.
tell which ones are used based on. age.
And the experiment is basically hopefully these numbers go down.
Ideally, yes,
Yeah, take those.
Do they do pick up at the same time each day?
that's a good question, I do not.
Like, is
know
it
the
possible
schedule.
to? Try to look right before they come and see.
That's what we.
That's what I was thinking
We're
about too. I was like, that's
chatting
the
about
best time to get those data. But,
But that's why we came up with the crowdsourcing idea, because we need more eyes. The ultimate is having-
Dumpster diving is not, sorry, I didn't
No.
interrupt you. And I just want to put out there that, you know, a lot of communities do type of audits in containers to understand what the material flow actually is. And dumpster diving and doing those spot checks is there are challenges with that. There are safety concerns, obviously. Making sure that people understand how to do it, making sure they go through a little bit of training, so they're doing it safely. But I think there are ways that we can do some spot checks and maybe work with volunteers, maybe work with CU a little bit more to at least start to get a little baseline about what actually is being thrown away. And look, the interesting thing about this is, I'm going back to a comment I made earlier. This goes on every single year at every single campus and everywhere. And a lot of campuses have gone to like a drop and swap where they warehouse materials, where they do these really creative reuse opportunities. They do these audits. And be honest, it's really the same kind of materials that get thrown away during move outs. It's lumber and cinder blocks for beds, it's appliances, it's those items that are in housing that people like, I don't want to store it, I don't want to take it home with me over the summer, I'm just going to throw it away. So it's really thinking about what are those reuse possibilities, thinking about where those things could go, how we would warehouse them, how we would transport them. How do we incentivize students to become a partner in that? But also, I don't want to minimize the fact that there are, I think to your question about hazardous materials, there are toxic materials that get thrown away. And that is one. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a big fear that we haven't really articulated. There's the flood risk, but there's also the toxicity issue in our waterways. And so that's one of the things we want to be thoughtful about as well. So I think tactics on how we can actually do those checks, how do we staff up, what kind of volunteer could we actually tap into to do some of those spot checks? Those are the kind of things I think that we're wrestling. Is that right?
Yeah, it is, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I think you could really utilize the high school populations that are looking towards building up their credentials for entering college.
Applications.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know I was looking towards like the President's Award, 100 hours for a year of volunteer work. When I was applying to college. I think you could utilize those, and then that would also be a good learning skill for if they wanted to go into any kind of like environmental services dealing with waste. Being able to do, it's kind of basically a waste audit that you're doing, so those are good.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think initially we're not looking for people to actually dumpster dive and get in them. We just want a peek over, a little cell phone shot, just to give us some idea of what's in there,
High school students are under significantly less activity stress at the end of the year, like for the school kids. There's a lot less to do in high school than there's in college.
Fair point.
And you had mentioned safety concerns. Is that mitigated somewhat by traveling in pairs or?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I would say yes, having done this many times myself personally, and I don't even want to go into that. Yeah, I mean, there's the concern, just kind of the social concern of people, like, you're on my property and you're looking in my container. You would be shocked how that can be violent. And it's outrageous. There is the concern about, like, you're working around materials that, and potential sharps. And so I think a little bit of training of what kind of PPE should they have on person, making sure they know what to do if they run into a counter. Yeah, big vest, I'm a dumpster diver. So yeah, I think a little bit of training, and yes, I like the idea of like having pairs. And I think there's some things we can do.
You know, the thing would be if the dumpsters are always in the same places, purchase some of those like really cheap, like $30 plant cameras that can take its image every 15 minutes and position the photograph of the dumpster, and then just collect the SD cards.
Actually.
Other we say cameras on the bears.
Headlights.
But not the. Then you'll have to do it.
Yeah, yeah, do some image, data analysis through that, and they do that in some cities with their like, waste haulers, where they, image search scan, on the conveyor belt, so that they know what's there. But then you don't get all of the high school volunteers, that would potentially go to CU and carry on that like knowledge of looking at waste.
Unless they whipped up an algorithm for you to discern certain items.
Well, it's not.
Did you ask, what's the disposal they can photo before they grab it?
Yeah, we debated that yesterday or the day before too.
We can certainly ask. I think that I think it is unlikely that that will be successful just because it adds, I mean, they're on their route, they got stuff to do. But we have asked because they're there and I mean, why not, right? And just be- Yeah, that's true. Amazon does do it, right?
Oh. Now that they're not trying to pick up now.
All right, guys, last call.
Yeah.
Maybe the one of the next items of the meeting. Anybody else have any question, comments? No, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This was really illuminating, for sure.
And thanks for the.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Congrats so much for doing that.
And thanks for giving up your chair, Jonathan.
The least I could do.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very, nice to meet y'all.
As we transition to your comment, one thing you should track is House Bill 1202, which is around creating safe injection sites. So that's a bill that's working through the state legislature right now.
Yeah.
Yes, I just, I was thinking about that the other
I
day.
think that's probably why.
It's got an uphill battle for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
Or the United States is very anti any drug of anything.
Yeah.
I was driving Sandy home.
Okay.
Can I drive her home and then come back and finish this up?
You just go.
You sure?
Fine. Yeah, of course. Yeah. We'll make it work.
It's gonna be recorded.
You just throw me into the deep end.
We don't, right?
That's awesome. I love it. All right. It's very quiet. No. I'll let you introduce it, or I can just take it away, however you'd like.
Go ahead.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Jonathan Cohen, Director of Climate Initiatives. I'll note the time. I think we have as much time as we need for this item. I don't know that it'll take a long time. So just for your reference, the document that I'll be referencing in your packet is very cleverly called multi-board working group description. So this was an attempt to just give you a high level understanding of what's in motion right now. And I thought I would introduce the topic, and the purpose tonight, and I think your task as a board, is to, if you choose to, appoint a board member to serve on this multi-board working group. And this is a bit of a pilot. So there is an action item for you tonight. The action is either to appoint, or if you can't, or if you, as a board, decide that you don't want to participate, that's an option as well. And in terms of process, we can just kind of go through, I can talk about what it is, and then you all can be thinking about whether it's something you want to volunteer for. And if there are multiple of you that want to volunteer, well, we can figure out how to deal with that. You can arm wrestle, we can flip a coin, however you want to work through that process. So let me give you a little bit of a background on this, because I think it's a result of a number of conversations, one that this board in particular has had in terms of what types of things come to the board for discussion and when does that happen. But that's a conversation that's taking place in other boards as well. So in a conversation with Nuria Rivera-Vandermeide, who is our city manager, one of the things that we started talking about is Because there's so much cross-cutting work that takes place among boards, and let me just kind of take a sidestep here and give you an example of what I mean by that. You all as the Environmental Advisory Board have the direct purview on environmental issues. Yet we've been incredibly successful in other boards starting to look at issues from that lens as well. So it creates an interesting dynamic of what is the purpose of this group, and then how does that relate to other boards like Transportation Advisory Board, who are looking at now very directly through the lens of climate and resilience, similarly with OSBT. And that's a good problem to have, but it also kind of puts us in a really odd place in terms of function and role of the board and how we bring things to you and when we bring things to you. So one of the things that we talked about is trying to find some of these sticky-ish issues that are taking place within the city that I think have really good cross-cutting need for conversation, and develop an ad hoc group, an ad hoc board, so to speak, with representatives from all the boards. And those representatives can kind of bring their unique perspective to that one particular issue. That representative would then come back and inform the rest of the board about what's going on, get feedback and carry that back in. This isn't a new concept. We've done this in the past with, say, the Greenways Advisory Committee and some other things that happen. But the difference is those are like review a budget and think about spending. This is more directly related to a project and thinking about the ongoing nature of that project. So as we were thinking about this experiment, we had a small staff team, including myself, get together and talk about how important this really is, and let's try it. Let's see if it works. And we were looking at this concept. We realized that we actually had a project ready to go that I think we all felt really fit the need. And that is phase 2 of the Boulder Junction project. So a little bit of a background. If you're not familiar with the project, I'm going to give you just kind of the high level, and then you can ask some questions. I may not be able to answer them tonight, and I don't know that it's super relevant for your decision, but certainly want you to feel confident that you're making a good decision as a board. So in 2007, we completed the TVAP, which is a Transit Village Area Plan. And so that is really the plan that lays out the long-term future for Boulder Junction. That's a 160-acre parcel that kind of sits squarely in the middle of the city, bounded by 30th, Pearl, Valmont, and Foothills Parkway. And so as visioned, it's always been intended to be this mixed-use, pedestrian-oriented place where people live, work, shop, play, all of those things. So phase 1 was really a 10 to 15-year project kicking off in 2007, and we're nearing the end of phase 1 and now moving into phase 2 of that project. A lot has changed clearly since that first phase, and we want to learn from that experience and carry that into the next phase. So phase 2 is really planned for the next 15 years, and there's some goals that are really driving this, and I can share the link. There's a great website on the city page that talks about the goals and the vision and where things are going right now with TVAP Part 2. So there are some regulatory changes. So looking at land use implications, talking about changes that we might want to consider around density, other issues. What have we learned? How would we want to apply any of those regulatory changes moving forward in phase 2? Looking at the plan's character districts and looking at the guidelines that really guide the development in that space. I'm looking at my notes because I don't want to miss any of these. These are important. Any other zoning or code changes that would need to be made to kind of development towards the plan's vision. The second goal area is around public improvements, funding, and phasing. So thinking about how we would look at the funding for those major infrastructure improvements. And this is a really interesting opportunity to look at things like, say, district energy, or ways to look at those core arterial services around transportation, multimodal transportation, and some of those nodes. Transportation demand management, so the TDM, obviously something that our Transportation Advisory Board will be looking at, but I think it's also squarely under the purview of this board too, to think about implications of transportation decisions that we're making that we apply to phase 2. The fourth goal is really around this broad sustainability concept, and this is one that I think really deserves some attention because things have changed so dramatically. Originally, the first phase of TVAP was really looking at sustainability from that typical three-legged stool lens: economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Now I think we have the opportunity to start looking at some focus areas around climate, around resilience, around equity. So some things that I don't think were ever considered in the first round, and that's just the reality of where we were at the time. So to start thinking about the decisions that we make in this second part of the phase. And then a big piece around engagement, working with stakeholders, implementation strategies, et cetera. So now the ask is for each of the boards, and there, I think I have them listed, there are about 8 or 9, maybe 10 boards. So Boulder Junction Access General Improvement District for parking, the District TDM, Design Advisory Board, EAB, Housing Advisory Board, Human Relations, OSBD, Open Space Board of Trustees, Parks and Rec, Planning, Transportation, and Water Resources. So the boards that we identified as having a critical role in this conversation. So your task, should you choose to accept it, is to appoint one liaison from this board, and with the intention of really getting early feedback on, are those the right goals? Should we revise those? How should we be thinking about this next phase? I find it really exciting because we're at the point right now in the project where we can modify, we can change, and we can talk to the community about, here's what we thought. Is that still what we think we want to do in this space, or do we want to modify that in some way? Let me just look. I think that is the gist. I'll just conclude by saying, to me, it's both about the product, but also the process. I think we can do a much better job of thinking about these holistic projects, thinking about them comprehensively, bringing the value that the boards represent to these kind of complex situations and projects. So that is it. We need to let Nuria know of what this board decides, whether you want to have a representative and who that representative is by April 21st. And so the reason that I started with, you need to make a decision tonight, is that this is a decision you need to make while you're gathered as a body. You can't do this over email. So it would have to happen tonight. And then there'll be a kickoff relatively soon, I would say probably in May. And PNDS, our Planning Development Services Department, is going to take the lead on this. Obviously, this is a development project, but they would be the lead, and they're the ones that actually created this this document to kind of help guide the conversation. So let me take any questions that you have. I'll try to answer them if I can, and then I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair, and you can talk about which of you have an interest, and if you have an interest at all, and we can make some decisions.
Do you know how frequently the ad hoc group would meet?
Yes, good question. I believe that they will probably try to, I was trying to see if it was listed on this document. I don't think it is.
Recurring basis.
Great. I don't think it's going to be a huge lift. It's not going to be a once a month kind of thing. My guess is that it would probably consist of, and please don't quote me, this could change. I'm guessing probably 4 meetings or so over, let's say, 6 to 12 months. That's what I think could happen. Now, one of the things that brings up is, if you're not available for a meeting, could someone be deputized to go in your stead? My guess is the answer is yes.
It says on here, an alternate will be identified to attend.
Thank you for actually reading the document. I guess I should just do that. Attention to detail.
Very occasional.
Yeah, there's an email and Nuria sent all the chairs. There's no information. No, frankly, it's no time yet, so I'm guessing they haven't figured that out yet.
No.
I think that before we would probably do it, though. Yeah, I think we all agree with that. Yeah, we should.
You'd have to send someone.
Yeah.
Would be a mistake to not to.
I would like to throw my hat in the ring for that. I think this working group with multiple boards, something that we have been pushing for quite a while now. So I'm really glad to see it materialize, and in terms of my capacity to attend and summarize and report back to you, I think I will do a decent job. So I just want to throw that into consideration and nomination.
Yeah, great. I think it sounds fascinating, but I've had the chance to participate in Greenway Advisory Committee events before, so.
Yeah.
But others.
Yeah, I'm currently on our representative to the GAC,
Yeah.
so I will definitely let other people.
Well, I think it's a fantastic idea, and as a new board member, I think I'll have enough to get it accustomed to, so I think I totally support your nomination.
Who wants to be the alternate?
I guess I'll throw my hat in the ring for an alternate.
That's like on the.
Yeah.
That was easy.
That's amazing. It's not like I expected you guys to debate it, but that worked out really well. So perfect. Okay, so I will let Nuria know. And if you feel inclined to respond to her directly, I would encourage you to do so, just so, okay. Yep, if you do that, that's great. And then just let her know that we do have an alternate identified as well. Then I'll follow up with her and make sure she's aware of it. We made that decision. And of course, the minutes will reflect that.
Great.
Can I make a request in that meeting of, since we may not be aware of when those are happening, is it possible to at least highlight when that is given the agenda or given a meeting, let us know the date so we know that we will have to talk about it in some capacity for
Yeah.
upcoming meetings or something?
So, as you know, like, I meet with Heather a week prior to this meeting, and then we kind of discuss the agenda and any points that we may want to bring up. So what I will do is, if I have a meeting, and for this project, I will just put it as an item on the agenda, we can discuss it, and update you guys. So,
The only other request that I would have as we go through this, what we're describing as a pilot, is for you all to like pay close attention to whether or not that it's working, this kind of cross-board concept. I actually am intrigued by it. I think it could really work to start thinking about things that, and I should have started with this. I just want to be really honest with all of you. I think that we've missed opportunities with this board to get input on some really critical issues. And I will just name them, things like CU South, a really big topic, clearly. Things like Boulder Res. So things that I think are now starting to surface as these really tricky issues around density and around other environmental issues. I think we're now starting to figure out how do we start to position boards in a place where they can provide good feedback at a time that it makes sense and actually influences outcome. So that's where I started the conversations with Nuria. And that's where we led to this. Well, sometimes a big project like this, it doesn't sequence well because you want to take it to 8 boards. That's a year right there. And so you kind of go through this. I mean, if you do them month by month, but this way we can kind of do it in real time and work with the boards in a more dynamic way. So I should have started with a little bit of intent, but
It's great to hear that.
Yeah. Okay.
I think on that note, also, if there's something coming up to city council, like in the next, like a month prior, that we know of that could be environmentally related, it would be great to know about that beforehand as a board, and with other boards too, like whatever, other board focuses on, if there's something that's pertaining to that will come up to city council for a potential vote or a discussion. Yeah, I think that's a great idea to inform the boards.
Maybe we can talk about the best way to do that. What you just described is, I think, an intent that I'm aware of. That where we get a little bit stuck is you are an advisory group to city council. And so this idea that our thought is that council would refer things to the board when they want you to weigh in. Well, they have 20 plus boards and it doesn't really happen that way. And so let's be honest. I think that we need to come into a little bit of a rhythm to say, and I would say not a month, I think a couple of months to be able to say, we need to get something calendared. If it's an item that you really want to discuss and take a position on as a body, and then represent that position to council, we need to back up that process so you can have the conversation and figure out how you want to convey any of your thoughts to them, whether it's in writing, whether it is showing up at the council meeting. And that way we as staff can make sure whoever's the lead on that project knows you either need to brief this board, you need to include their feedback into your staff memo to council, or know that they're going to show up and present to council on that evening. So that's, I think, some of the cadence that I would really like to get into. So,
Yeah, I would like to sort of second that. I feel like this board and a lot of boards kind of get skipped over on a lot of projects that are very prevalent to the issues that they talk about and any potential relevance. I can't think of off the top of my head any one thing that we have done as a board that has been, you know, had a impact on what is going on at council. And I think in this current day and age, with the degree to which the environment is a crushing issue that needs to change. And I don't know what the best way to do that is, but
Yeah, and I said 1 month because I'm not sure how the cycle usually goes to when you decide to show something to council, unless they come to you and say, we want to hear about this because it's like an emergency issue, came up really quickly or something like that. So depending on what that schedule cycle looks like, however long in advance you need or can do.
I'm sorry, we've kind of hijacked the conversation and taken it a little bit.
I wanted to bring that issue actually as part of the old business and updates.
Okay.
Agenda item. Because so in the last meeting, Carolyn came and asked for feedback on leaf blowers.
Yes.
And a potential ban or a seasonal ban. You know, we had a good lengthy discussion. During my meeting with Feather, I asked if we could be more in the loop on this memo that was gonna be sent to council. Because I don't like playing games of like broken telephone, you know, I wanna make sure that what Carolyn was gonna put in the memo actually reflected what we discussed for like, you know, over an hour. So Carolyn wrote to me yesterday afternoon and gave me one paragraph that, you know, was supposed to be part of the memo. But she said she was gonna needed to submit it by today. Tomorrow, okay. So I sent her back like I can share my screen, I guess. Because I still have, since it's tomorrow, I still have time to but basically, you know, I guess where I'm going with this is I would like to have a little more time for us to be able to discuss these kind of items to make sure that what gets put in the memo that and the presentation that goes to council reflects what we at least we feel that it reflects what we discussed. I don't like that, and this has happened in the past where, you know, like it happened with the parking tickets a while back, parking downtown, you know. Staff comes to us, asks for questions. And then it kind of falls into the crack, like, I don't know, like what put in the memo, I don't know. I mean, I will have to keep up with all the stuff that goes to council, you know, probably attend the meetings, which are really long. So if that process could be a bit more convenient for us, that would be great. I mean, we could be, you know, involved a little more in that loop, that would be ideal for us. And I don't know if you guys, what you guys feel about that, but that's something that has bugged me for quite a while.
A lot of the feedback we give, I feel like it goes into a sort of void.
Like a black hole.
Yeah.
And it does that, right? Because it does get presented to council and they have an opinion on that, but it's like, and I still haven't seen the memo that gets sent to council of how, you know, where is a paragraph gonna be? It's gonna be at the end, it's gonna be at the middle. I haven't seen that. And it's like, you know, I think, you know, you guys came to us to ask for feedback and I think, you know, I don't know, it's like reviewing a research article, I guess is what I'm going for, but I do want to like look at it because it has our names on it, you know, like this is like what the board is trying to push for, and if it has my name on it, I want to make sure that it does reflect what I think. And I don't know, like I haven't seen the final draft of the memo, and I do find it a little disconcerting.
Well, let me point out one thing. So I totally hear you, and I think there's a way to do that. Boards do, and public does not get to see council memos before it goes to council. That is not an option. That is by council's design. They get to see their memos before anybody does. Now, what that doesn't mean is that we can take out a chunk of that, and what should happen is to say, here is what's going to be represented in the memo, and it could just be the actual language to say, because there is a format in council memos, which is board and commission feedback, public feedback. And so it's organized in that way. And so we have a chunk that says Environmental Advisory Board, this item was taken, and then here's a summary of the comments and the thoughts that you had. So that material should come to you. You should see that before it goes into a memo to represent, does that accurately reflect what you talked about? Or do you want to make any changes to that? That's got to match up with the minutes, of course. You can't like change and say, well, I didn't really want to say that, I said this, but I think we can work with you to say, what are the points that you really want us to make sure are that we're really highlighting to council, and we can do that both in the memo. We can do that in a presentation, but I don't want to set an expectation that you can see a council memo, because this has been something that has caused a lot of controversy over many years, where public has seen council memos before they see it, and they don't like that very much.
But like I guess the memo that was sent to council is based on the memo that we received last month, right?
That's fair. Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
That's a starting point, right, for staff, like.
It's a starting point, sure, but I think the difference is for council as the policymakers, we then lay out, here are the questions that we need to ask you as the decision makers, and it's a study session. So in a study session, we say, you know, here's what we want to ask you. We're going to present our data to you. Here is our recommendation. And within our recommendation, we went out and did a whole bunch of things, right? We hired a consultant to help us identify what are the impacts to the various alternatives, whether it's a regulatory, whether it's an incentive program. And then we say, and then we talk to the AB, and then we summarize, here was your input, and basically here's what they said to us, and that informs our recommendation to you, council.
But then to what extent do we have the capacity to suggest changes on those memos, all those initial drafts, beyond, you know, the one paragraph that says board recommendations or board's opinion? For example, in that memo that we received, I would like to see a little more citations. I mean, there were a lot of statements about the amount of gas and the pollution, but there were no sources.
I know.
And it's like, okay, do I get to complain about that, or like, and if I do, it's like, how do I know that it was actually implemented?
Because you have influence beyond the part that's just our word language, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it's like, you know, you're coming to us for opinion, I guess, or advice, right? Or an advisory board, and it's like those little things, those little details, I think are important. So there's like a little, like I don't need to see the entire final memo, that's fine. But there might be little sections of it that is like, oh, this needs a little more work, or, you know, more sources, like this needs more data, or maybe, I don't know, there are little things
Could
that.
that just be like a,
Reflected in their comments.
or like whoever sent you that paragraph, could that just be like a conversation, like, hey, just wanted to make sure that you knew we wanted to see more citations.
Yeah.
Can you confirm that you have put more citations without actually seeing the specific language?
Yeah.
Is that something that?
But then like the things like, okay, well, what's the quality of the citation, right? What are they citing? Are they citing like some magazine? Are they citing a research article? Like, I don't think for me, because I'm you know, I'm not from missing academia, like, you know, like when they send papers to review, it's like, okay, well, what the heck is the citation? This is bad, you reject. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a gray area there where it's like, I don't know, I feel like that advisory board thing, you know, should be more about advising also on the memo itself, but.
I'm going to push back on that, because again, you are an advisory group to city council. You are not an advisory group to staff. We come in and ask your opinion on items. The writing of memos, I mean, there's been a pretty strong firewall between like staff memos. Now, what I want to respond to your request, and I think there are ways that we can do that. And so in this particular instance, like citations, if there was a memo that was sent to you all, and there were concerns with how the material is being represented. And I mean, that's your purview is to then bring up those issues when staff brings those conversations to you. You can ask those. And then staff's role is to make sure that we are capturing that adequately. The piece that I think we can do better on, and this is, I think, what you're getting at, is making sure we're building in time to come back to you we don't always have the time, right? But I think we can figure out a process to do that, to make sure that you are seeing what is being represented in final memos as a body. Here are your recommendations. And we could even go so far as to say there was comment about making sure that any citation, any data that is being referenced is valid, it's statistically relevant, it's timely. I mean, those are the things that I think the rigor that you all need to bring to the conversation. All I'm suggesting is that there is a separation between a staff memo and giving you an opportunity to review that staff memo. Because what'll have to happen is the way you think about it may not be what the rest of the board thinks. So we would have to come back and say, okay, what do you all think about the memo? And that's just, I don't know how we would do that. But your conversation needs to be accurately cited, no question. And I think we can do better at that. Yeah.
So, I mean.
Just in reflection of everyone having limited time and ability to go back and forth between all the people involved, would it make sense to, you cited at least a couple of things that you've had in the past that you would have liked to see a little better? Would it be worth kind of providing a couple of concrete examples of kind of the expectations of what you would like to see in future memos as a way to kind of have a little bit of it retroactive editing, or just a step towards something that meets the board's expectations without the back and forth juggling amongst all these people, to at least close the gap towards what we want?
Yeah, because I mean, one of there's sometimes, if this is like data heavy topics, there were some questions that I asked during the discussion that staff didn't have the data for. And I know, I mean, I'm not sure if that data was included in the memo, in the final memo, for example. Like I asked, if we have any data about what percentage of greenhouse emission gases come from leaf blowers.
Yes.
Compared to cars.
Yes. Yes.
And Carolyn said she estimated that to be at 10, but to not quote her on that. 10%, which to me seemed really high, because compared to, so it's like, okay, but that there was no follow-up to that, and I still don't have the answer to that, and I don't know how that was included in the final, or if that will be included in the final memo. So it's like things like that. I would like to figure out some sort of like follow-up on that, even if I don't have to see the memo, at least okay, maybe these are the questions that we're going to answer perhaps, and just email and then have some process for looping the board about those issues, in between our monthly meetings.
Yeah, I think that's tricky because we have to have like actual public ability to participate if we have more than a quorum that is discussing any issue, which is why we can't like respond to emails. Yeah, so they're back and forth.
But there is precedent, because like a couple of years ago when we submitted our letter to council, like with recommendations, we did like after the meeting edit where like Martin, when he was the chair, and Susan Collins, I think it was, they were like editing the document with Brett, and then we will go and edit it, and it was like a share file, which again you can see the memos, but I mean there's precedent for collaboration outside the meetings. So I don't know like what's, I guess what the limits are,
Yeah, the rules are you can't make any decisions.
That's fine, but
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I also think there has to be like a level of like, that we have to be thoughtful to comment and say during the feedback that we would like more information on this, and then we have to assume that we're all working together, and there has to be a level of trust that that comment's going to be addressed, right? Because we can't go back and forth forever, and we can't see that, so I think we have to have that like collegial like trust, right? It has to do that handoff.
I'm gonna have to make a decision. We can just make recommendations like post-its, and then Caroline or whatever, whoever's presented, they make the decision. So it's not like I'm just suggesting this could use citation. If you think it's like that's a dumb idea, then you decide that I don't want to.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I don't know, like I don't know if it's a little bit of a gray area, but I would like to kind of hear. I'm not as happy today, but because actually we're past 8, so I think it's a motion to extend the meeting a little bit longer. I think I have to do that.
You do, yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, just throwing that out there because there's something that the feedback loop kind of has been bugging me for a while. And I don't know to what extent what is so much more we can do about that to kind of close that gap.
I think I appreciated the comment about some examples because again, I think we need to troubleshoot a little bit and say what didn't work in the past, where did we get it wrong as staff, and kind of making sure that we're representing the board's position. There's another piece of this too, which is your minutes. I mean, if you look at your minutes, I know minutes seems really clunky and you're just like, yeah, I approve the minutes, but it's intended to be a reflection of your conversation. And so a lot of times what staff will do is they will both in real time, take your comments, make sure that they are hearing what you all are saying, both as a collective body, but also the individual comments of the board members, and trying to make sure that those are represented as we move this item forward, right? Whether it's a council item, whether it's a design of a program, et cetera, et cetera. But in the memo prep, I think that we can tighten up a little bit and make sure that we are looping back with you. Part of, I don't want to commit to doing it all the time, because sometimes time just is not on our side. Meaning, what I'd love to be able to do is make sure that if there is a recommendation or a representation of this body's thought, that's reflected in minutes. We can come back to you at the following meeting and just make sure, is this what you said? You want to make any amendments to this? And do you want to have more conversation on it? And then we can make sure that, yeah, we're all square. Okay, let's move forward. We don't always get that 2 bite at the apple opportunity. And so let's think together about ways to make sure that we're doing what you're saying, because I'm not disagreeing or pushing back on the intent. I was only pushing back a little bit on the process.
I think our minutes have always been great. I mean, we've had very few of it for years.
Yeah.
They're very accurate.
The minutes tend to be pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if there is a specific concern we have as like a group on any memos that might be coming up, if that is reflected in the like in the environmental board comments on the memo, the paragraph that we are allowed to see.
Yeah.
That it says like EAB was concerned with this particular wording, wanted more citations. And that is actually included in the paragraph, and then whether or not they include more citations in the memo is hopefully done, but up to them. But then our comment is at least included in the memo that we were concerned with the citation.
I know it was my bad because that was partly ignorance. Like I thought like we'll be able to see the memo and get your feedback on it, and then they're like, oh yeah, at that point I say this will use a citation if we post it there. I wasn't aware that we could only see the one paragraph.
Yeah.
So otherwise I would have probably sent an email earlier or something, or mentioned it even during the meeting. I wasn't aware that was a partially my fault. Before we go, I'd like to share what I mean. I still have time to maybe ask Carolyn to well, I would like to show what Carolyn's gonna show for the one paragraph for the staff.
Yeah.
And what I kind of was thinking about sending back as feedback. I briefly summarize our minutes from last time. It's a little longer, but I'd like to hear your. How much am I screen? Do you need to make me a post maybe?
Let me see. I might actually be able to do it, or yeah, let me just see here. Promote to panelist. That might have done it.
Okay, there we go. I get your screen. I did.
Yeah.
Post disable attendee screen sharing.
You also.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a post now.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
Technology.
Yeah, I know.
You know, panels, but
There. There we go.
we really have no public participation. Wow.
It's a little like the first time ever. I like
A little weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's never happened. This practice not long, but.
And I have the memo in front of me too. Need me to do it.
Hernan, can you share screen?
I think so, but now it's asking me for accessibility issues or something. I have to give accessibility permissions to. I know, man. Jeez. Okay, one second, I think I need to get Zoom. It's kind of. Jonathan, can you just send you this as an email and you can like just open it? It's just some text that I think might be easier.
Let's see. Now I'm in the position of like, I am not an attendee to the meeting. This is there's troubleshooting.
You should be able to share your screen now. You're a co-host and a panelist.
I did, I clicked on share Microsoft. Yeah,
You just want to read it to us?
I guess so.
Your computer screen up the camera.
Oh my God, that's funny. Okay, it's very funny. Wait, maybe I could do that. That's hilarious.
I mean, it's just a blank white screen. You'd need to shift the contrast in order to make it work.
I know,
That's-
but still, it is. What a.
Stop it, Charles.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so the one paragraph that is included in the memo right now, it says. Staff presented an update to the EAB their March 1st, 2023 meeting. EAB did not recommend pursuing a regulatory strategy at this time. EAB expressed concern about the high potential for racial disparities, as well as the readiness of electric technology for commercial applications. EAB recommended prioritization of education and outreach on sustainable landscaping and maintenance practices for both property owners and service providers. EAB also recommended further study of the environmental impacts associated with electric equipment due to its reliance on lithium battery technology. Finally, EAB expressed interest in the potential for local investment and pilots for emerging technology solutions that will help reduce both noise and environmental footprint.
Can I share with you that's been updated? And it may have been in your communications with Carolyn, so.
Yeah, I think that was really good, but I was going through our meetings and I think there was a little more discussion. So what I suggested to Carolyn, I did this because I thought her deadline was today. But I divided it into 4 different groups, which was cost and equity
Yes.
concerns. Can you share that?
That's exactly where that's what it looks like now in the memo, and I'm gonna see if I can just send this to Heather and maybe open it up. Or I could just send this to all of you too. I could just do that.
Well, it wouldn't be on the,
You're right.
sorry.
Dang it.
Looking out for whoever watches this afterwards. We don't want multiple people coming in public next session being like, you shared something and we can't see it.
That assumes that people watch the. Well,
Okay.
feasible, but I would not bet money on it.
Let me just see if I can do this.
If I was a betting woman, I would not bet any amount of money.
I didn't know I could watch this later.
You're not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I can do that because then I'm gonna be showing Heather's email on the recording. I don't think I want to do that.
Let's not do that.
Yeah. Let me just say, could I just say it out loud and maybe
Go ahead.
describe to you what has changed? So, yeah, thank you. I think what you just described was an original kind of high level roll up and it sounds like based on your conversations, same introductory paragraph. But during the discussion, board members raised several concerns and suggestions, including, and it's broken down into 4 subject areas. First being cost and equity concerns. Underneath that, there are 4 points: highest cost of transitioning to electric equipment, potential equity concerns and racial disparities among the landscaping workforce, lack of an electric version of gas powered blowers with the same weight to power ratio, durability and efficacy, high cost of purchasing multiple electric blowers and or batteries. Second category, environmental impacts. Need to educate property owners and service providers on negative impacts of traditional landscaping. Second, potential for banning leaf blowers for all but 2 months of the year or requiring raking before blowing. Third, significant environmental impact of commercial leaf blowers on ozone levels. Fourth, need for further study of environmental impacts associated with electric equipment. Fourth is noise concerns. possibility of removing noise ordinance exception for landscaping equipment or allowing it only for electric equipment. Second, concerns about neighborhood yards being left with leaf litter. Issue of landscaping equipment, primarily a noise concern disguised as an environmental one. Practicality of using leaf blowers on certain surfaces or large areas, the possibility of local investment in pilots for emerging technology solutions or implementing a new incentive program for electrical equipment adoption. And the fourth is customer costs, suggestion that customers bear some of the cost of providers switching to electric.
And I took that from our minutes, so I went through the minutes, I summarized the main points, and then I, send that to Carolyn and.
I would just say to elaborate a little bit, there were 2 points that. It was kind of like an overall topic that was addressed, but. I couldn't quite understand the entire thing without going back to our minutes, for the racial disparities. Part of it, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, our discussion was with respect to cost of electric alternatives and interaction with police and code enforcement.
We did talk about that, I believe it was a big one.
Yeah, so not just that there are racial disparities in who is landscaping, but that the big problems arise when we make racial minorities collaborate with or connect with the police or code enforcement. And then I think we were also talking about raking before blowing specifically for smaller areas, because we had a discussion on like huge fields and that would take like hours to rake. So if council saw that, it might be confusing as it was worded right now.
Got it. Okay.
John, you can send this, should we going to send those edits to Carolyn or?
Okay.
Oh, if it's
What
not
you're-
too late to edit.
No, what you just described, I just wrote down. So yeah,
Okay, okay.
I still have access to the memo.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in terms of a like high level overview of sort of what happened in terms of connecting feasibility to board desires.
Yes.
I think that it would be great if anything going into a council memo that specifically cites us. That's just like, if it's a paragraph or like if it's describing what we're saying, it would be great is once the wording for that is finalized, if that could just get sent to the EAB. Just, so that we can.
With
just-
enough time to.
Right,
um,
so that we can take a peek at it, and I doubt that there would be any consistent issues, but just making sure that the things that. We're saying that staff is transcribing to council, that there's just. Because broken telephone does happen, and the minutes are mostly descriptive of what happens. But because by virtue of them being transcribed into minutes rather than a like complete transcript. There could be some like translation errors.
Sure.
And so just make like, so that we can. Like just see the part that is specifically has our names attached to it.
Okay.
I think would be, if that is representative of the board.
I agree, because, to add another layer to that, usually staff is taking their own notes, right? So it's like different even from the minutes, so it's like another layer of like. For possible confusion, so yeah, I think reviewing these minutes before. The finalized draft, I think it's a good compromise,
Since we can't, and it is not feasible for us to just go like, cool, let's see that final memo that's going to council before it gets sent to them, cool, let's approve the entire thing. That's ridiculous and not feasible, but if, the things that are specifically us saying that it's been transcribed and then translated and then transcribed.
Sure.
Yeah, and
I agree on that.
thank you for bearing with us through this whole conversation, because it's a lot, and I know you're newly taking on the role of being a staff. liaison.
I've been working with the board for a long time, so not a problem, and that's why I just wanted to have an honest conversation about this.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Very appreciated.
And your requests are totally justified, so great.
So if we're ready, we can move on to quickly to the next items. There is a World of Program training. I think Heather already sent the email for that, so I think it should be good on that. Just know that it's in your inboxes. If you want to attend the training, you have all the information there. The next EAB meeting is scheduled on May 3rd, 6 p.m. And that's about it. Any other items, anybody, any things anybody wants to discuss? Otherwise, I'll just move to adjourn the meeting.
We're gonna stick with in person as far as it goes, right?
Yes, and based on tonight's
We come back to this room.
we are not coming back to this. No. Yeah, no, what I think Heather and I talked about is just making sure, probably what I think we will do is go over to the Tate Municipal Building. There is a room over there that is set up for Zoom. Much better acoustics, good size, good. So yes, we will let you know. What's that? You want to get on? We can make that happen. We'll make that happen. Get us run upstairs and get something happen. It's okay.
Yeah, that sounds like a great way to reduce chaos.
Thank you all.
Anybody second?
Cool, done.
Hang on, I just need you to sign that's too.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all.
Yeah. We usually don't go over time.
Yeah.
Maybe this has something to do with me. Maybe this is not a good fit. No public participation and.
I strive to finish every meeting up.
I know you did it.
Well, I know, well, I'm not sharing this. I work though.